Deep in the heart of Ohio, there lies a small town with a dark past. A past filled with secrets and unsolved mysteries, one of which still haunts the residents to this day. I am talking about the Circleville Letters, a series of anonymous letters filled with threats and accusations that shook the town in the late 1970s. The letters, known as the Circleville Writer case, have never been solved, and the person responsible for these letters remains a mystery. At the center of this case was Mary Gillespie, a local resident who received several of the letters. The story begins with Mary Gillespie, a local school bus driver who receives an anonymous letter threatening her to stop an alleged affair with Gordon Massey, the superintendent. The letter stated, "I know where you live. I've been observing your house and know you have children. This isn't a joke. Please take it seriously." Mary ignored the letter, thinking it to be a prank, but soon received another letter that was even more threatening. The writer was not content with just sending letters. He began to place deranged signs along the roads of Circleville, accusing Gordon Massey of having a sexual relationship with Mary's 12-year-old daughter. The signs were not only embarrassing but also damaging to the reputation of all those involved. Mary and her family were at their breaking point. They decided to send letters of their own to the person they believed was the tormentor. This seemed to work and the letters stopped for a while, but the case took a dramatic turn when Mary was almost killed by a booby trap set by the letter writer on February 7th, 1983. Mary had stopped her bus to remove a sign that had been placed at an intersection. The sign had an obscene personal attack against her daughter. When Mary removed the sign, she found that it was attached by a string to a cardboard box. Inside the box, there was a handgun rigged to fire with wire around the trigger. Held upright between styrofoam, the intention behind the trap was to trigger the gun to shoot Mary when she removed the poster. Fortunately, the trap didn't succeed. The police department launched an investigation, but despite their efforts, they were never able to track down the person responsible for the letters. They were able to trace the gun's serial when the police interviewed Paul Fresher. He stated that the gun had disappeared in the past and he had no information on its whereabouts, and denied any involvement in the booby trap. Despite the lack of concrete evidence, Fresher was arrested and charged with attempted murder. Fresher was convicted and sentenced to 7 to 25 years in prison. However, the letters continued to be sent even after his incarceration. The letters were postmarked from Columbus, which was odd considering Fresher was not imprisoned in Columbus. The prison warden concluded that Fresher could not have possibly been responsible for the letters. Despite the lack of evidence linking Fresher to the letters and the booby trap, authorities still believed that he was behind it. His parole hearing was denied because of it, despite him being a model prisoner. The letters continued to be sent even after his incarceration, taunting and terrorizing people from all walks of life. And all of them were postmarked from Columbus, just as they had always been. This led many to believe that an innocent man had been put away in prison. The investigation was full of twists and turns. The case seemed to have no clear leads or suspects. The letters became more personal and specific in their accusations, leading many to believe that the writer was someone close to Mary and her family. Some even suggested that it could be a group of people working together. The case took a tragic turn when one of the letter writer's victims, Ron Gillespie, died in a car accident on August 19th, 1977. Many believe that Ron's death was not an accident, but murder, as the letter writer had threatened Ron's life if he didn't expose his wife's alleged affair. Ron's brother-in-law, Paul Fresher, was convinced that Ron had been murdered after uncovering the identity of the letter writer. The evidence seemed to support this theory. Ron was not a heavy drinker, but his blood alcohol level was 1.5 times the acceptable amount, and Ron's gun was found under his body. And it appeared that one round had been fired sometime between when he left his house and when his body was found. The sheriff at the time, Dwight Radcliffe, initially suspected foul play in Ron's death, but after the coroner's examination, he changed his mind, believing that it was an accident caused by drunk driving. Many believed he had a motivation to cover up a possible murder, as he was running for president of the National Sheriff's Association, and a town plagued by a letter writer who had turned to murder would not be a good look for him. The harassment continued even after Ron's death, with letters being sent to everyone in Circleville, including local businesses and schools. The letter writer seemed to know details about people's lives that a stranger should have no way of knowing, causing even more fear among the community. As the investigation continued, the letter writer became more and more frustrated with the lack of progress. and even accused Sheriff Radcliffe of covering up the truth of Ron's death. The letter writer also made accusations of sexual abuse against the coroner, Dr. Ray Carroll. After Ron's death, Mary Gillespie, who had denied having an affair with Gordon Massey while her husband was alive, began a romantic relationship with him. Following this, the threats against her became even more vicious, including explicit threats against her own daughter. In August 2021, the television program 48 Hours on CBS aired an episode in which they attempted to identify the author of the Circleville letters through forensic analysis of the handwriting. They hired a document examiner named Beverly East to compare the letters to the known handwriting of Paul Fresher. East found numerous links between the letter writer's handwriting and Paul's handwriting, especially in the formation of numbers. However, not all experts agree that Paul Fresher is responsible for writing the letters. Mary Ellen O'Toole, a former FIB profiler, has expressed doubt that there is sufficient evidence to conclude that Paul Fresher was the author of the Circleville letters. In particular, O'Toole points out that letters were sent while Paul was in prison, making it physically impossible for him to have written them. There were hundreds of letters sent to people all over central Ohio during the 10 years of Paul's incarceration. O'Toole also believes that the letters were written by a female writer and that the letter writer was not well educated. Paul Fresher had an advanced education, holding multiple college degrees, one of which was a master's degree. Despite the claims of 48 Hours, it is clear that the true identity of the Circleville letter writer remains a mystery. The case of the Circleville letter writer is a fascinating and perplexing mystery that has captivated the public for decades. Despite numerous investigations and theories, the identity of the letter writer and the events surrounding the case remains a mystery to this day. It is clear that the case is not just a question of who done it, but also raises a number of questions about the nature of truth, perception, and the limits of forensic science. While some believe that the case will never be solved, others hope that new technology, evidence, or a fresh perspective may one day help shed light on this dark and mysterious case, and bring closure to the families and victims affected by the letter writer's actions. Regardless of the outcome, the case of the Circleville letter writer will remain one of the most intriguing unsolved mysteries of our time.